everyone, this is Dr. Flores and welcome to the PMP Live Seminar Series. As you know, this also applies to the CAPM, the Certified Associate in Project Management. We are in lesson 17 and it is related to the process called Estimate Activity Durations. The process is Estimate Activity Durations. The knowledge area is Time Management. Don't forget, there's a difference between the two. Time Management, there are 10 knowledge areas. And at the present time, there are 47 processes. We have estimated activity resources, but now that we know the resource, we can determine the duration because the skill level of the resource or the type of resource affects the duration. Remember that resources are not just people. It could be equipment, technology, and anything else that we use as a resource. A resource is anyone or anything that is allocated to the project to get things done. I also want to mention to you, and I'm sure you remember this, but you get a 1 PDU, 1 Professional Development Unit, for listening to the recording or attending any of these live sessions. So that's good stuff for you if you're preparing for the exam, and if you're coming back after you've taken the exam, you can listen to 60 of these. 60, we'll have 60 here soon. And you can get your PDUs without paying any money. So spread the word. It's good stuff now. So the agenda, have a quick welcome, which I already went through. And now we're going to talk about the topic, which is, going back to the topic, it's estimate activity durations. And we are in time management. Time management sometimes is called schedule management. We'll have some key terms for you there and review a couple of questions that I wrote for you. I found one of them to be pretty tough, but I think you'll enjoy it. And we'll have a Q&A. Since it's a recording, not so much a Q&A, you can always reach out to me through email, and we'll have the next meeting on Monday. Now, remember that I will sometimes have a live seminar session where we come together. I sometimes do these recordings. I find the recordings to be pretty productive because I can get those done for you, get them out to you as quickly as possible. They're recorded, and you can still follow up with me when you have questions. Okay, so estimate activity durations is the name of the process. Don't forget that is a process. The definition, estimate activity durations, is the process of estimating the number of work periods needed to complete individual activities with estimated resources. You see the word estimate like 3 times in there? Because we are in the planning process group, okay? The planning process group, we're doing estimation. What are we estimating? How long something's going to take and how many work periods based on the people, capital, equipment, technology, or the resources that are doing the work. The key benefit for this, well, the key benefit of this process is that it provides the amount of time. We need to know how long something is going to take for each activity, and which is a major input into the developed scheduled process. So if we know how long each activity takes, we can sequence those activities, and then we're going to get an entire schedule. But we wouldn't know that unless we've gone through and estimated each activity. I understand it can be kind of cumbersome to do that, but it is important that we do it so that we can get a good baseline for our project, a good schedule baseline. We have 3 baselines now: cost, schedule, scope. Cost, schedule, scope. Okay, here are 3 key terms. Analogous estimating. This is a technique for estimating the duration or cost of an activity or a project using historical data from a similar activity or project. It is qualitative. So remember, analogous estimating is, hey, we're going to find out, or we're going to estimate based on what we've seen in the past. It took us 5 months or 10 months to do this kind of work, so we're going to use that estimate, which is qualitative because it's based on previous work. We're going to use that as our number, as far as putting it into the schedule. Analogous is based on something that happened in the past. Historical information, historical data. It is subjective or qualitative. Differently, we have parametric estimating. This is an estimating technique in which an algorithm, so now you know it's different from analogous because it is an algorithm. It's quantitative, it's computer-based, it might be statistical, and it is used to calculate cost or duration based on historical data and project parameters. Now, you see the word historical data again, but the difference here is that in analogous estimating, it was used without any further computation. It was just like, well, those projects took, or those activities took several months, 2 weeks or whatever it was. With parametric estimating, we feed variables, like, for example, let's just say we're constructing a new building, a new civic or community center, something like that. And we've built a community or center in the past, maybe some of them. Well, we're using maybe square footage, we're using the type of equipment that was used in there, and we're feeding all of this information into an algorithm, which is going to kick out a schedule for us. And based on that schedule, we can also calculate cost. So it is quantitative in nature. Quantitative. I hope those make sense. For the exam, you want to know that analogous is qualitative or subjective. Parametric is quantitative or objective. 3-point estimating. This concept originated with the Program Evaluation Review Technique, PERT. I would first of all know what PERT is. I had a question similar to that. It was GERT, G-E-R-T on my exam. And you want to know what it stands for. If I remember right, GERT was like Graphical Evaluation Review Technique. And they didn't ask me to do any kind of computation, or they just asked me if I knew what it was. So I would definitely know Program Evaluation Review Technique. And it uses 3 estimates. They are most likely, optimistic, and pessimistic. The formula is the pessimist plus the 4 times ml. So you multiply 4 times ml, which is most likely, plus O, and you divide the whole thing by 6, not just the O. You divide the whole thing by 6. So P is pessimistic. The most likely gets a weight of 4. Why? Because this person or this estimate is coming from someone who does the work most of the time, or who has a pretty good idea. Can it be the same person giving you the estimate? The answer is yes. But you want to get these 3 estimates because it increases the chances of you getting the duration correct. You feed this, you do the calculation, and you put the number right into the activity. Based on this, you might come up with 21 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever it might be. It is a weighted average. The most likely gets a weight of 4, the P gets a weight of 1, the O gets a weight of 1, P is pessimistic and O is optimistic. And you notice if you add 1, 4, and 1, that's 6. This is a weighted average. On the exam, sometimes they just ask you for an average. Well, if it is an average, you don't multiply by 4. Most likely does not get multiplied by 4. And you divide by 3 because there are only 3 components, right? Okay, good stuff. I'm giving you more information there than I thought about, but I know how the questions are worded on the exam, and I want you to be prepared, okay? Now, here's example question number 1. The project team is working on an IT initiative. The goal is to develop a disaster recovery plan that is triggered when a catastrophe occurs. Now, you don't have to know what a disaster recovery plan is, but they will use these kinds of examples on the exam, and the expectation is that you have a general idea. Well, just be aware that a disaster recovery plan is maybe like a hurricane, or it could be an IT data breach or something like that. And so as part of this effort, this team will create the initial outline for the business continuity plan. So the example here takes you through a little scenario. Now, the second item here, the second paragraph, when estimating the duration of scheduled activities, which of the following techniques is likely to be the most accurate? Okay, so you notice how here comes the stem of the question that really has almost nothing to do with the scenario, right? When estimating the duration of scheduled activities, which of the following techniques is likely to be the most accurate? So you're looking for one technique here, though. And which one is it? Is it 3-point estimating because multiple sets of data are provided? So is it 3-point estimating? Is it analogous estimating because subject matter experts share information? Okay. Is it C, parametric estimating because of the sophistication of underlying data? Or D, work breakdown structure because of the decomposition process? This is actually a pretty tough question. Now, the one that pretty much has to go is WBS. because it's too generic. Yeah, we do have the WBS. Yes, it is helpful, but we're looking for an estimation technique. And the WBS is not an estimation technique. The WBS decomposes the project, but it is not an estimation technique. All right, so that one's gone. 3-point estimating. Well, it's kind of cool that you get estimates from 3 different people, or 3 different, same person, but 3 different types, which are optimistic, pessimistic, and most likely. But notice that it is still somehow subjective. Someone might say, yeah, 4 weeks, 8 weeks. And so it makes it subjective. And we know B, analogous estimating, is also subjective. So, just doesn't look like it's that, that can be that accurate based on one other option that's here. So even though B came from subject matter experts, so did A. A came from subject matter experts. You ask somebody who does this work all the time, well, so A and B are gone. The answer is parametric estimating because of the sophistication of underlying data. So when we start inputting numbers, when we start putting information based on historical projects, and we start feeding it into an algorithm, assuming we've got good information, parametric estimating, anything that's quantitative, is going to give you a better result. And I hope that makes sense now, because this is very important in the concept of thinking, hey, how do we get an accurate schedule? Did that make sense? I hope it did. I hope it did. And it's the answer. Parametric estimating, the explanation here, can produce higher levels of accuracy depending, I get it, depending on the sophistication and underlying data that's built into the model. But it is a model and it is an algorithm, so it's going to give you a little bit more accuracy. The other part to consider, though, it does take longer because you're collecting more information. And because it takes longer, it costs more. But because it takes longer and it costs more, it usually is more accurate. Yeah, I hope you see that. The quicker way, the cheaper way is it's called analogous estimating, because you just go and get the information from previous projects. It's also decent as far as estimation, but if you really want to nail it, you probably will do some kind of parametric estimating. All right, question number 2. During the estimate activity duration process, it becomes clear to the schedule manager that a buffer should be built into some of the activities. The main issue of concern are that risk can impact the project, such as those related to cost, scope, and procurement. So here we're talking about risk that can affect projects, but we're also focused on estimate activity duration. We're estimating how long something will take to be done. What is that? It's an activity, a task. How long is that activity or task going to take? These buffers are added specifically because of which of the following risks? All right, what do you think? These buffers are added specifically because which of the following risks? Are they unknown unknowns, unpredictable, predictable, known, and unknowns? Now, here's a tricky thing now. If you haven't studied for the exam, you're probably going to pick either predictable or unpredictable, because you're thinking, gosh, I talk about that all the time. I say something's predictable. I say something is unpredictable. Well, guess what? Those are not terms that are used that often in project management as far as the PMBOK guide. They're used in everyday language, I get that. But they're just not part of our jargon, especially when it comes to the exam. So your answer is going to be between unknown unknowns and known unknowns. These are related to risks. Now, you're being told that buffers are added specifically because of something that's going to happen, a risk that could happen on your project. You just don't really know when. Well, guess what? That is a known unknown. If you know a risk can occur, and this says the buffers are added, so you're already told that the schedule manager working on the project has added the buffers because the schedule manager has figured out that there are risks that we need to consider related to cost, scope, and procurement. You see how that one was worded? It's tricky, I can tell you. I mean, I know when I'm writing these, I go, holy cow, that one could trick me. But once you know how the exam is written, you tend to be in pretty good shape. Most of the time, because I take a lot of standardized exams, they like to put like the real options like spread out. So like you see where I have A and D here, they're spread out. They're not like A and B. It would normally be like A and B or B and D. They're not right next to each other usually. Now that's not a great way to pick an option. but I tend to see that that's the way it's displayed on the exam. Be aware, it's another little thing to tell you that you've got to zero in on one of these options. An unknown unknown is a risk that catches you completely by surprise. You were just wiped out. Maybe it was a death from one of your key stakeholders. Maybe it was a terrorist attack or something like that. It just catches you by surprise. All right, so the answer was known unknowns. Given the buffers are added, so we were told that cost, schedule, and procurement, whatever I said earlier, let me go back and look at it. Cost, scope, and procurement. Cost, scope, and procurement were already added. The buffers were added. The risks are likely known unknown, which means that the risk will happen or they can happen on the project, but we're not sure exactly when they will impact the project. Known unknown means that we know they can happen. We know they probably will happen. We just don't know when. Think about a risk like a budget thing. Maybe we know that the budget can be cut, or maybe we have a risk of poor weather. We're working in the Northeast, and the project is a 2-year project that is going to go in the hard winters of the Northeast. Well, you know to add the buffers because it's going to be tough to meet certain deadlines when the weather is so poor, so inclement that we can't do the work. I think you understand where I'm coming from. Okay, and if you do have questions and answers or questions and comments about these, let me know. I'm here to help and answer any of these. We can discuss them through email. If you have some comments, share those with me, and I'll be happy to respond. What I'm trying to do, as you can see through these presentations, is give you as much feedback as possible. Okay, so we try to do these on Mondays. We do these on Mondays, actually. And in fact, today for me is Monday, and I record it or I have the session, and we have it in the evenings. It just depends on the schedule. So please be aware of how we do this. And if you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out to me. The other point is remember that there is a program out there. It's a very comprehensive program with a lot of questions just like these, more than 200 questions that I created, almost 250, where I read through the options. I go through each one, each topic, and I cover it extensively. The goal is to give you as much knowledge and information as possible. And I recommend the PMP Pro Plus, which has all of the elements. It has all the upgrades to it, as far as all the videos to it, like this one. And when the new exam comes out, you'll just roll into it. You'll have the access to that as well. So you've got a lot of good information there. Okay, I'll see you next week. Goodbye for now.